This episode of Musical Hell is brought to you by Midnight Musicals. Welcome to the podcast Musical Underground. And by Cafe Himbo Cookbooks, celebrating his 10th anniversary. Thank you. I don't have a problem with adapting movies into stage musicals. My problem is that too often lately, the wrong kinds of movies are being adapted. You need a better jumping off point for a musical than here's a thing from 30 years ago people remember fondly. Something about the material needs to, well, sing. It could be the depth of the character's emotions, the scope of the drama or humor, or just an undeniable sense of style. And while Andrew Lloyd Webber's Treatment is a bit of a mixed bag, one movie that has all three of these in spades is Sunset Boulevard. So let's take a look at the 1950 noir classic directed by Billy Wilder. Sunset Boulevard is one of those movies that most people are at least somewhat aware of, thanks to reputation and pop cultural osmosis. It's widely cited as one of the greatest films of all time, and, perhaps more significantly, as the film industry's most brutal self-critique. Much of the bad stuff that has come to be associated with Hollywood, egotism, sexism, ageism, sensationalism, is on full display here, and with little filter to protect the real players at the time. Actual studios and locations are used, Gloria Swanson and Erich von Stroheim play characters with backstories practically identical to their own, and the As Themselves roster includes director Cecil B. DeMille, paparazza Hedda Hopper, and silent film alumni H.B. Warner, Anna Q. Nilsson, and Buster Keaton. Combine this air of authenticity with a darkly witty script, amazing production design and cinematography, and one of the most compelling female characters in movie history, and it's easy to see why Sunset Boulevard is so enduring. So here's how it originally went down. As the movie opens, police and reporters are converging on a crime scene. A man has been shot and his body is floating face down in a swimming pool. This is Joe Gillis, and the narrator, Joe himself, offers to tell the real story of how he wound up pulling a Jay Gatsby. 6 months ago, Joe, a struggling screenwriter, was fleeing from repo men out to take his car when he blows a tire and hides in the garage of a dilapidated mansion on Sunset Boulevard. The mansion's owner is Norma Desmond. Once a silent film idol, her career dried up with the advent of talkies, and she now lives as a recluse, with only her memories of glory and her butler Max for company. On hearing Joe is a writer, Norma taps him to evaluate a script she's developing based on the legend of Salome, which she intends to be her big return vehicle. The script is only slightly less hopeless than Norma's dreams of a resurrected career, but Joe offers his services as a script doctor, hoping to finagle a little easy money out of the older woman. However, through a combination of expensive pampering and some emotional abuse of the "if you leave me I'll kill myself" variety, he soon finds himself installed as Norma's kept man. But part of Joe still longs for a less tawdry existence, and he seeks it out in Betty Schaefer, an aspiring screenwriter and also the fiancée of one of Joe's close friends. A few calls from Paramount convince Norma that her film is on the cusp of production, but Joe and Max learn they're really interested in renting her vintage automobile. Max, revealed to be Max von Mayerling, Norma's impresario and ex-husband, urges Joe to leave Norma the comfort of her illusions, but when Norma learns about Betty, Joe is forced into damage control mode. He pushes Betty away to protect her, then prepares to leave for his old job as a journalist in Ohio. On his way out, Joe tries to force Norma to face reality, but she instead goes completely around the bend and shoots him. The authorities arrive to find Norma completely consumed by her fantasy, dreaming she is on the soundstage as the newsreel cameras film her close-up. Sunset Boulevard has a lot of the drama and emotion that make for a good musical, so it's not surprising that Lloyd Webber wasn't the first composer to consider the prospect. Other names associated with earlier attempts include Stephen Sondheim and Kander and Ebb. And honestly, I'm a little disappointed we never got to see those versions. Sunset Boulevard is film noir, which is a deeply cynical genre, with morally gray characters and a hard world that twists and defeats even the best of intentions. Even Betty, the most idealistic character in the movie, is disillusioned and compromised. She knows about the industry's demands on women and has the nose job to prove it, and her relationship with Joe carries more than a whiff of infidelity. Joe and Norma's tragedy is one very much of their own making, but it's exacerbated by a culture that worships youth, novelty, and status symbols. That's the kind of thing you'd expect from the people behind Follies or Chicago. Lloyd Webber does trade in cynicism on occasion, most frequently during his partnership with Tim Rice, but by the 90s he was primarily driven by his impulses as a showman and romantic. The original production of Sunset is remembered primarily for its various leading lady controversies and effects that attempted to recreate film techniques in an elaborate and prohibitively expensive manner, and the biggest change from the film version is the expansion of Joe and Betty's relationship. In the movie, this is mostly relegated to the second half, but the musical starts developing it earlier, highlighting the love triangle where Joe is caught between the young, conventionally appealing Betty and the older, eccentric, and increasingly unstable Norma. No points for guessing why Lloyd Webber latched onto that particular dynamic. The musical's more romantic approach does add a facet that I rather enjoy, though: the development of Norma as an artist. Songs like New Ways to Dream and As If We Never Said Goodbye show us a woman who is driven not only by pride and narcissism, but to feel the thrill and joy of performance once more. And that speaks to the difficult position familiar to so many artists. People create because they have something to say, something inside them that they're eager to share with the world in general. But sharing it often involves dealing with organizations that are dysfunctional, profit-driven, and frequently abusive. And no points for guessing why I'm latching onto that particular dynamic right now.